Hey guys, what is up? Niad here with Film Comics Explained. We are back with some more Predator. When we had left, Schaefer had left for Colombia, following in his brother's footsteps, to find the truth behind all the murders happening in his city. He was given some information from an elusive General Phillips. Led into the jungle by a mysterious guide, Schaefer encountered the Predator once again, whom he defeated. Meanwhile, his partner Race was trying to convince McComb to look through the Predator helmet, which would allow him to see the alien ships floating above the city. The idiot refused, insisting he will place the detective in a jail cell for withholding evidence instead. Race took the stairs to reach the chief of police, but was detained by agents who whisked him away. Schaefer was double-crossed by his guide, who revealed he was actually working for General Phillips. They were both ambushed by Echeverri's men, who detained him. Schaefer was tied to a chair and about to be introduced to a handsaw, but just like his brother Arnie in True Lies, he was able to break himself free. He ran out of the building, only to find himself surrounded by hundreds of Echeverri's men, who were then mercilessly wiped out by a clan of predators. We returned to find Schaefer running through the jungle. From the sound of the screams, he figured the hunters were starting to enjoy themselves. It was only a matter of time before they turned their attention towards him. He says, "It's always darkest before the dawn," just before he is whacked across the head with the butt of a rifle. A man is standing over him who says that Echeverri was dead, and that the Medellins would be seeking a new liaison. He goes on to say with Schaefer's head on a post, the choice will be obvious for them. Schaefer says, "Post this," as he kicks him from the ground. He gets up and punches him, saying that he seems to be unclear about what is happening. He explains that those things playing laser tag with his friends don't care about cocaine, as they were not human. But the guy doesn't believe him. Shay flings him to the ground and tells him he doesn't have time for this, insisting he is sore and hasn't had a good cheeseburger since he left New York. The guy then picks up his rifle and aims it at his back. Schaefer tells us that he wasn't sure why he turned his back on Echeverri's boy. Maybe he wasn't thinking straight, or maybe he just didn't care anymore. We find the cartel member getting shot by General Phillips, who saves Schaefer and tells him to shut up and follow him if he wanted to live. They run back to his helicopter as Schaefer asks him if he can hear the racket his alien friends were making. Phillips tells him that the predators don't give a damn about Echeverri. They don't care about anything but Schaefer himself. We return to find Race with the agents. He tells them that this sucked and asks how long they think they can keep him there. One of the agents tells him for as long as they have to. Race calls him Mr. Smith before telling him that his shoes are untied. The agent insists that Race gets serious as they were trained professionals. The other agent then gets off the phone and tells his partner that Schaefer was due in 6 hours and that they were going to chopper him to the Pan Am building to make the delivery there. Race turns around asking what they meant by delivery, quickly realizing that they were going to hand his partner over to the predators. He calls them lousy bastards, and we see one of the agents pulling out their gun, telling him to back off, threatening to cuff him to the toilet if he made a move. Race quickly apologizes and says that he is a little tense after all that's happened. He tells him that he must understand Schaefer is his friend. We see the agent putting the gun back into his jacket. Race then turns to the guy on the computer and says, "Hey, doesn't 2 + 5 = 7? Before slamming his face into the table. We then see the two agents being flung out of the door. Race then walks over the bodies as he tells us he will be at the exchange point. We then see the detective back inside the police precinct. One of his colleagues asks where he has been, as the watch commander had been looking for him, and Race says that he was doing his taxes. He then asks a fellow cop called Bernie to help him. Bernie is unsure, and we see him telling Race that he thought he needed permission from McComb before entering the impound room. Race tells him that he and the captain were tight, before telling him to help load all the weapons seized from the bust into the cart, and then help him carry it to his vehicle. We return to Schaefer and the general, who lands on a private hangar. He tells Phillips that he wants some answers, asking what they are dealing with. The general says he hasn't got a name if he wants one, and if he wanted a location of origin, it definitely wasn't Earth. He goes on to explain that they have been coming for centuries, always in the heat. They like the chase, and he suspects they hunted the dinosaurs to extinction. He never thought he would have to deal with them this far north, as they were mostly confined to hot equatorial countries. He then says it's possible there is more to it, as they seem to like Schaefer and his brother Dutch. Schaefer tells him that's good, as he intends to blow them all away, but we see the captain pull a gun on him, explaining he had something else in mind. The general insists that they are talking about hundreds of thousands of lives here. He tells him he had seen the blast site in the jungle, asking him to imagine the devastation if something like that exploded in the city. Schaefer jokes that he says that like it would be a bad thing, before saying, "I've got a better idea." He overpowers the general and apologizes as he knocks him out. He then points a gun to the pilot's head and says, "Hi, where are we headed?" The pilot tells him they are on their way to Pan Am, where the brass are trying to arrange some kind of meeting. As they approach the heliport, he counted 6 military types on site. They were trying to keep the operation low-key. He tells us that maybe that was their problem. You don't wish this kind of trouble away. You've got to face it. He goes on to say it was time to quit pretending there was some easy solution to their problem, and was time to show these ugly mothers who was boss, as he knocks out all the soldiers attempting to open the door. He takes their weapons and tells them to put on some music and open the bar, as it was party time. Raish explains that he went to the top of the building fully loaded, thinking he would need some firepower to get Schaefer away from the general and his men. We see him kick the door open, yelling at everybody to drop their weapons, only to find Schaefer has already bound the soldiers up. We're told that they left Phillips and his ballet company on the roof and made their way to his U-Rent garage space on the Lower East Side. He had taken enough weapons from the impound to take on every psycho in Manhattan, but still hoped that was enough. They begin loading the van up as Raish tells his partner he's been giving it some thought, and it seemed as though they were outgunned. Schaefer jokingly asks how is that, and Raish explains that the predators were invisible and shot laser beams, and probably also hated country music. He tells him he will go through any door with him any day, but they cannot do this alone. Phillips had every federal agent looking for them, and their own captain would have turned the whole precinct against them by now. Schaefer then asks who said anything about taking them down alone, as he pulls up outside a building. He tells his partner to come inside in 10 minutes if he wasn't back, and to kill anything that moved. We then see him enter alone. Once inside, Schaefer yells out to Carr, saying that he knew he was in there, as intelligence had been tracking him for months. He explains that he wants to talk, and we see Carr sneaking up behind him and letting off a shot. He tells them that he was game, but insists that he drops his gun. We see them take a walk, and Carr tells him he has some balls to come here, as he has wanted his brains on the wall since that night the police took out Lamb and his men. Schaefer asks if he wants to sing in the shower or talk, before punching him and wrestling him to the ground. He explains that this wasn't the police, but something worse, telling him that he needs his help. Schaefer then feels the tag on his neck go off, indicating the predator was there with them. Carr points the shotgun at him and tells him that the talk show was over, and says, "Bye bye pig." We then see the silhouette of the predator behind him, which lifts him up with its right hand. Schaefer realizes they were still following him ever since the attack. We see the predator repeat Carr's line from earlier, "Bye bye pig," and we see Schaefer jump for the shotgun, saying not yet, and that he needed him alive, smacking it across the face with the gun. The predator drops Carr and takes its helmet off to face Schaefer. He goes to fire his shotgun, but it is damaged from hitting the helmet. Schaefer tells the hunter it must be his lucky day, as we see the predator fire his laser. Schaefer narrowly misses it by jumping out of the way. The predator is standing over him, and we see him telling it to come on and do it, as this was what it has been waiting for. He yells at the predator to finish it, and we see the shadow of Raish appear. He points a bazooka at the hunter and tells it that it is under arrest. He then says, screw it, before pulling the trigger. We can see a huge explosion going off the side of the building. Schaefer then asks if any of this was sinking in for Carr, or if he was twice as stupid as he looked. Carr then agrees that maybe it wasn't the cops who trashed his men. He then says that the creature was dead and this whole thing was over, but is corrected by Raish, who tells him he is wrong. He is looking through the predator's mask and can see a ship directly above him. Schaefer points out that they will not be happy when they find what is left of their buddy down here. Not very happy at all. Unfortunately, that's all that we have time for today. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and to subscribe to stay up to date on all my content. Also, check out my VidMe and Patreon to stay up to date on all things Film Comics Explained. Subscribe to my Facebook to find out what content is coming out next and when. Alright guys, stay awesome. Niad here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.